Can't hear.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the October 11th Policy Committee meeting of the Halton Catholic District School Board. Please be aware that we are live streaming this meeting and it is available on the board's YouTube channel. I call this meeting to order and we will start with the land acknowledgement.
Halton, as we know it today,
is rich in the history and modern traditions
of many First Nations and the Métis,
from the lands of the Anishinaabe
to the Attawandaron,
the Haudenosaunee,
and the Métis.
These lands surrounding the Great Lake
are steeped in Indigenous history.
As we gather today on these treaty lands,
our Catholic social teachings
call us in solidarity
with our Indigenous brothers and sisters
to honor and respect 4 directions:
lands, waters, plants, animals, and ancestors
that walked before us.
All these wonderful elements of creation exist,
gifted to us by our Creator God. We acknowledge and thank
the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation
for being stewards of this traditional territory.
I would like to hand it over now to Trustee Dewart to lead us in our.
Good evening, everyone. Please join me in the sign of our faith in the name of the Father and the Son, Holy Spirit. Lord, as we gather today at this policy meeting, we ask that you will be in our midst. Help us to make decisions that will be pleasing to you. Help us to be able to discuss the matters at hand in a reasonable way. Lord God, let this meeting be productive, and as should be the case in all areas of our lives, help us to keep you at the forefront of our minds as we do the work set before us. Amen. In the name of the Father, and Son, Holy Spirit. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee Dewart. Moving on to item 2, approval of the agenda. Trustees, can I have somebody please move to approve the agenda?
Moved O'Brien.
Moved by Trustee O'Brien, seconded by anyone?
Trustee Agnew.
Arabella.
Thank you. Seconded by Trustee Agnew. Is there any errors, omissions, or deletions to the agenda? Seeing none.
Can I put my hand up?
Sure. I didn't see your hand up, Trustee Dewart.
I'm trying to put my hand up. It's all slow at my end.
Okay, Trustee.
Do I have the flow? I'm hearing some noise.
Because Trustee Dewart, you need to not turn on your microphone until I give you the floor so that we don't get the feedback, okay? So Trustee Dewart, you have an addition?
Yeah, I want to request the action item. Can you move the agenda up, please? Action item 6.2. I would like to put in a request for that to go under discussion items, just because it should follow our policy and our governance policy. It has to, there's steps involved there, so I'd like to put that request. Madam Chair.
Not sure who just Madam Chaired. Oh, I see. I've got some hands up here. Sorry, why my laptop is being very slow this evening. My apologies. Trustee Agnew?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Sorry, just calling in from the car on my way to the office. So further to Trustee Duart's comments, I was actually going to bring that forward when we got to that item for action, was to ask my fellow trustees if they would be amiable to us having that become a discussion item or perhaps some other action with it. So I don't know if we want to do it now or if we want to have that conversation when that item comes up on the agenda.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Seeing it as your item, and if you're okay with doing that, as long as we have no other trustees who are opposed to moving it to a discussion item. Okay, seeing that there's no oppositions, thank you, Trustee Agnew. We can move it to item 7.2, I believe, or 7.1.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Madam Chair, I'm having a little bit of a problem here, if you don't mind. I cannot, my icons are not going up, my hand up, so I'll have to just say something. They don't seem to be working, sorry.
A minute to do that, and that usually rectifies the problem.
Sorry, I didn't hear you. Can you repeat?
Because when you turn your microphone on, it creates feedback while I have the floor. I would ask that you try to log out and log back in, and that usually rectifies the problem. We can give you a minute to do that.
We'll take the vote and then I will log out and log in.
Thank you, Chair Duart, Mr. Duart, or Trustee Duart. Would you like to take over and chair? I can always pass the microphone.
Thank you for your kindness, but I'll wait.
Okay, seeing none, we'll take it to a recorded vote. Trustee O'Brien?
Question clarification, this is to move it to a discussion item, correct?
Yes. Well, nobody objected to moving it to a discussion item, so now we're just voting on the approval of an agenda.
In favor.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Carabella? Trustee Carabella?
I'm actually extremely sorry. I had to step away for a second. Was it the approval of the agenda? Yes. In favor.
You, Trustee Duart?
In favor.
Nota?
Yes, I'm in favor. Thank you.
Trustee Agnew?
In favor, Madam Chair.
Trustee Bowie?
In favor.
Trustee Chua?
In favor.
So we do not have Trustee Guzman on. Okay, and I am also in favor. So the agenda is approved. Moving on to item number 3, declarations of conflict of interest. Trustees, do we have any declarations of conflict of interest this evening? Okay, seeing none, moving on to item 4, delegations. There were no delegations submitted for this meeting. Item number 5, approval of the minutes of the September 13th, 2022 meeting. Trustees, can I have somebody move that we approve the minutes as presented?
I'll move it.
Okay, moved by, I think, was that Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota and seconded by Trustee Agnew? Yes. Anybody opposed?
Madam Chair, I would just like to say I will be abstaining as I was not at the meeting.
Okay, so I will take it to a recorded vote then, trustees. Trustee Agnew?
Sorry, Madam Chair, I'm in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Bowie?
In favor.
Trustee Chua?
In favor.
Trustee Carabella?
Abstain.
Trustee O'Brien,
In favor.
doesn't look like Trustee Dewart has made it back in, so I'm going to give him a minute. If that's okay, trustees, just to let him try to come back in. So Trustee Dewart hasn't returned in, but numerically it's insignificant. So we'll proceed with the minutes.
Point of privilege, Madam Chair. I vote in favor.
Oh my goodness, I'm sorry, Trustee O'Hearn, your notes. How do you vote?
Yes, I'm in favor. Thanks.
Thank you. Sorry about that. And just to clarify as well, Trustee Murphy will be joining us. He's just running a little behind. Moving on to item 6.1, policy I-12, emergency response plans for fire evacuation, lockdown, hold and secure, shelter in place, and bomb threat. Trustees, can I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommends that policy I-12, emergency response plans for fire evacuation, lockdown, hold and secure, shelter in place, and bomb threat be forwarded to the October 18th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval?
I'll move it.
Moved by Trustee O'Brien, seconded by Trustee O'Hearn-Giannotta. Thank you, trustees. And we have Superintendent, who do we have here? Sorry, I think Superintendent Cordero. You could.
Thank you. Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. Before I present, I wish to thank the Superintendent of Facilities, Ryan Merrick, and senior staff, notably Superintendent Emmy Bakaich, for their contributions to the policy review process. The purpose of this action report is to provide for the consideration of the policy committee revisions to policy I-12, emergency response plans for fire, evacuation, lockdown, hold and secure, shelter in place, and bomb threat as recommended by staff. Minor revisions have been made to the associated policy and procedures, references and requirements to include updated references and clarifying language. Minor housekeeping changes have been made throughout. The revised policy is attached for review and consideration by the policy committee. I welcome at this point any question committee members may have.
Thank you, Superintendent Cordero. Trustees, do we have any questions? Trustee O'Hearn-Giannotta, you have the floor.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Cordero. Good evening. I just have a quick question. It looks like we added to this policy and procedure II-42 medical conditions. Superintendent Cordero, was the reason it was missing, was it just an oversight or something in that regulations made us add it to this policy?
Thank you, Trustee O'Hearn-Giannotta, and through you, Madam Chair. Excellent question. This was a previous omission on our part, and we felt that the policy would be more complete if we had that addition to its policy.
Do you have a follow-up question?
Just a comment, Madam Chair. Thank you for that. So it's made it more of a fulsome policy, Superintendent Cordero. Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Trustees, do we have any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Superintendent Cordero. We'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta.
In favor.
Dewar.
Sorry, I could not get back. I'm on. What are we talking about, Madam Chair? I just got on back.
We are voting on the emergency response plans for fire evacuation lockdown. There was only one question, and we're now voting to recommend it to the next next board meeting.
Okay, in favor.
Thank you. Trustee Agnew. Trustee Bowie.
In favor.
Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
I am also in favor. The policy will be moved to the next board meeting. Moving on to item 6.3. Policy II-35, access to school premises. Trustees, can I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommends that policy II-35, access to school premises, be forwarded along with amendments to the October 18th, 2022 regular board meeting for approval?
Duart.
By Trustee Dewart, seconded by
I'll second it.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta. Thank you. And we have Superintendent Cordero and Superintendent Merrick. You could walk us through the changes, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In similar fashion to the previous policy, again, I wish to thank the Superintendent of Facilities, Ryan Merrick, and senior staff, notably Superintendent Emmy Bakaich, for their contributions to the policy review process. The purpose of this action report is to provide for the consideration of the policy committee revisions to policy II-35, access to school premises as recommended by staff. Minor changes have been made to the associated policy and procedures to include updated information and clarifying language. Minor housekeeping changes, again, have been made throughout. The revised policy is attached for review and your consideration. I welcome any questions from committee members at this point.
Thank you, Superintendent Cordero. Trustees, I'll open the floor. Trustee O'Brien, you have a question?
Yes, thank you, through you, Madam Chair, to Superintendent Cordero. I'm just wondering why the phrase progressive discipline in safety schools has been taken out and replaced by creating safe and accepting schools.
Through you, Madam Chair, and to you, Trustee O'Brien, that is to be in alignment with our most recent revisions to progressive discipline policies and administrative procedures that came to be, I believe, in November of 2021.
Follow up, Trustee O'Brien?
Yes, thank you, through Madam Chair. So just for clarification, our progressive discipline policy will be in effect at all times, even though there's this change in terminology.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Trustees, do we have any other questions?
Madam Chair,
Okay, Trustee O'Brien, you have the
thank you, through Madam Chair, to Superintendent Cordero. And I've always wondered this. I like the policy as it stands. And I think it's bullet 6 that talks about who is allowed on school premises. Is it bullet 6? I'm not sure. But there is a list of who is actually allowed in the policy. And I'm just wondering, when we do partner with our city and things like parks and everything, there it is. So the person enrolled, a parent, and I've wondered this when I was a teacher on yard duty, if there's a shared playground, creative pro playground, how does the policy fit in with that?
To you, Madam Chair, to Trustee O'Brien, perhaps if you can maybe give me a little bit more clarification as to the context of what you're asking.
Example, I'm on yard duty as a teacher, and this is actually true. It's recess, and all of a sudden there's a couple teenagers with questionable activity laying on the swings. Just wondered how our policy would relate to that. It's actually a real thing. We just, most of the time we would do nothing but just be hyper vigilant, but I'm just wondering if that was ever kind of considered in this policy. That's all.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien, and through you, Madam Chair. If there are students who do not attend the school, adults who have not approved to be on school premises, or other bystanders who have no connection or relationship to the school, then the immediate response is for the staff supervisor, be an EA, teacher, or whomever, to ensure the well-being of the students are away from those individuals, to inform the school administrator, i.e. the principal or the vice principal, and then that school administrator will effectively engage in a conversation, and if need be, ask those individuals if they're not, if they do not have prior approvals to be in those spaces, to leave those spaces.
Thank you.
And if I may add, if there is a resistance or worrisome concern around that, then the school administrator could follow up with a trespass notice or a contact to Halton Regional Police.
Thank you, Superintendent Cordero. And moving on to Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Through you to Superintendent Cordero. Maybe kind of a silly question, but I'm going to ask it anyways. All of our schools at HCDSB are all locked, right, during the school day. So only access would be to buzz through. So any visitors or any people on premise have to go through a locked door, correct? Or do our secondary schools, they're open during the day? Is that not correct?
That is correct. So all elementary schools would be locked, the front doors, and only through the access through the key or the fob. The secondary schools would, in the majority of schools, secondary schools, the front doors would be unlocked, and perhaps the back spaces or back doors to the school where phys ed classes may enter and exit during the school day.
Okay, thank you. No follow-up.
Thank you, Chernotta. Trustees, do we have any further questions? Seeing none, we'll take this to a recorded vote. Thank you, Superintendent Cordero. Trustee O'Brien.
In favor.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta.
I'm in favor.
Trustee Agnew. Trustee Bowie.
In favor.
Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
I'm also in favor. The policy will be brought to the next board meeting. Thank you, Superintendent Cordero. Moving on to item 6.4, educational research. Trustees, can I have somebody please move that the policy committee recommend that policy II-38, educational research, be forwarded to the October 18th, 2022 board meeting for approval?
Do what?
I trust. Seconded by.
I'll second it.
Thank you. Dr. Collymore, I will pass it on to you to lead us through some of these changes. Welcome, Dr. Collymore.
Good evening, and through you, Madam Chair. So the purpose of this report is to provide for the consideration of the Policy Committee revisions for Policy II-38, Educational Research, as recommended by staff. The revised policy is attached for your review and consideration by the Policy Committee. Revisions have been made to the associated policies and procedures, the references, the definitions, and the requirements to include updated references and clarifying language. Minor housekeeping changes has been made throughout to the report. The revised policy is attached for your review and consideration, and I'm happy to take any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Collymore. Trustees, I'll open the floor to questions. Do we have any questions for Dr. Collymore? Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you, through Madam Chair, to Dr. Collymore. Dr. Collymore, I did see look at the anti-racism data standards, and I just want to say that they're very comprehensive. I'm looking at the one under bullet 1, it says assess, plan, and prepare. It says that identify, need, and establish specific organization objective for personal information collection based on stakeholder and community input. So the question to Dr. Collymore, I think that's really important. Now that we're in an election, again, we see the numbers again. We have about 140,000 ratepayers, and it's still hard to get stakeholder feedback from them. We've had this conversation before, I know. So in our last survey that we had 1,385 people respond, which is about 1% of our stakeholders. So I think I want to ask Dr. Collymore, the research department, what do you think we need, or you need, to get that percentage up? What do you need from the board? Is there maybe third party you can access to help with that? I just put it out. Dr. Collymore.
Through you, Madam Chair. Thanks for the question, Trustee O'Brien. So, always engaging our stakeholders is always very difficult. I mean, we have a number of surveys and or other requests that come through the board throughout the school year. And so it is challenging to constantly be asking parents for feedback, for students for feedback. That being said, it's very important for the work that we do for planning and purposes on our part. And so, it's really important that we have clear messages about the purpose of the collections, which I think we do through our messages and through our invitations. We also try to limit the amount of requests that we do put out throughout the year. So we are cognizant as a department of how many are going out, and all of that collectively hopefully will engage our stakeholders, allow them to really participate and give their feedback when there's something that comes their way that they really want to share their thoughts about. I'm not sure that a third party per se is going to be the answer in terms of increasing our numbers, but like I said, I think clear communication around the purpose of the collection and why it's important and how we're going to be using the data and for what purposes will help in terms of our response rates in the future.
Do you have a follow-up, Trustee O'Brien?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. I hear what you're saying. Communication is key. And I think you do a great job of communicating to our parents. I'm thinking about our stakeholders who are not parents. Are there any tools that we can give you to help access them to make that feedback more fulsome?
Through you, Madam Chair. I can't think of anything specific, but I do work closely with strategic communications to ensure that all of our stakeholders, including those who aren't necessarily parents in our board, are receiving at least the invite or an announcement that we are looking for stakeholder feedback. But I can't think of anything else specific at this time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee O'Hearn-Trinalta, you have the floor.
Thank you. And through you, Madam Chair, to Dr. Collymore, just a quick question because I don't know who's on it. There's a research advisory committee, correct? So when a research activity wants to move forward, it goes to a committee. Dr. Collymore, who is on that?
Through you, Madam Chair, thanks for the question, Trustee O'Hearn-Trinalta. So yes, there is a research advisory committee. We meet 4 times a year, and it really depends on the external research applications that we receive. So as the chair, I take a first pass over the application and I look at the content area of the application. And then I invite members to participate in the committee. So it does change depending on the applications received, but there is always a member of the research team, superintendents from either special education or curriculum or school services, again, depending on the applicant, the application content. There are curriculum and spec ed consultants, human rights and equity. There may be, chief of speech and language or mental health services. It really depends on the applications, but there is at least about 6 to 10-ish people at any given meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Collmore. Through you, Madam Chair, just a follow-up comment. So, no, that makes me feel good that we have educated eyes, obviously, they're looking at all the different research projects that are ongoing. So that's awesome. Thank you for that clarification. I didn't know. Thanks.
You're welcome. Yep.
Thank you, Trustee Ahern-Ternot. Trustees, do we have any further questions? Seeing none, we'll take this to a recorded vote. Trustee Chua?
In favor.
Trustee Ahern-Ternot?
I'm in favor.
Trustee Agnew? Trustee Carabella?
In favor.
Trustee Bowie?
In favor.
Trustee O'Brien?
Opposed.
Trustee Duart?
In favor.
I am also in favor. It's 5 in favor, 1 opposed. The policy will be brought forward to the next board meeting. Moving on to item 6.5, policy III-03, teacher performance appraisal. Trustees, can I have a motion that the policy committee recommend that the policy III-03, teacher performance appraisal, be forwarded to the October 18th, 2022 board meeting for approval?
I'll move it.
Duart,
Moved
second.
by Trustee Ahern-Ternot, seconded by Trustee Agnew. We've got Superintendent Ullman on. Superintendent Ullman, can you walk us through the changes, please?
Thank you, will do, and good evening, everyone, and good evening. Thank you, Madam Chair. So III-03 teacher performance appraisal is in, is in front of you for your consideration and review to the policy committee. Really, at the end of the day, as part of the review, really ultimately minor housekeeping changes were made throughout the document, as it suggests compliance otherwise with our overarching legislation and requirements under the Ed Act and our technical requirements.
Thank you, Superintendent Ullman. Trustees, I'll open the floor to questions. Okay, seeing none, I'll take it to a recorded vote. Thank you, Superintendent Ullman. Trustee Agnew. Trustee Bowie.
In favor.
Trustee Chua.
In favor.
Trustee Duart.
In favor.
Trustee Carabella.
In favor.
Trustee Murphy, welcome. Do you know where we're at this
point? Yes, yeah, I'm in favor.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. Trustee O'Brien.
Opposed.
And I am also in favor. Thank you, trustees. This will be moved on to the next.
Point of privilege, Madam Chair, I'm in favor.
Sorry, Trustee Ahern-Ternot, I apologize. You're in favor?
Yes, I'm in favor, yeah.
I'm so sorry, Trustee Ahern-Ternot, please, it's nothing personal, really, truthfully, I promise. So that is the end of our action items, trustees. Now we'll move on to discussion items. Policy I-23, Catholic School Councils and Catholic Parent Involvement Committee. So I'm going to hand over the gavel to Trustee Agnew if she's okay with that.
Okay, gavel passed.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair, do I have the floor? Thank you. So this was just really a discussion item. I wanted to talk to trustees and have a discussion on the role of CPIC and how the communication comes to us as trustees, and kind of how the process works, and to talk with the superintendent who oversees this portfolio, and kind of what the process is when there are concerns that are brought forward. What's the best way to resolve them? Is it through CPIC? Is it through the superintendent who oversees the portfolio? Is it the superintendent of family schools? Because there seems to be a little bit of a disconnect, and I know each principal gets to have kind of their own kind of style based on the community. But I guess really, what is the direction that we're giving based on the policy and procedure that is in place, and how does that translate to the schools?
Thank you. So we do have a couple of hands up. Sorry, everybody. So Trustee O'Hearns-Renata, you've got your hand up.
I do. Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. I just, I reflected a lot about this over the summer, because this did come up, at the end of the year, and I was one of the ones that requested that maybe CPIC is the one, and I reflected and thought, okay, well, maybe that's not the right way to go. But to me, this is the impression of that if the local Catholic School Council and their admin team together kind of can't work it out, what's the next step for them? Where can they go? Where can they go to voice their concerns? And we hope that's very few and far between, and hopefully zero. So I just offer up for suggestion, if something needed to come, maybe not through CPIC, but maybe direct to the chair at the time, or to the director, and then at that point, whatever the topic was could be vetted and move forward in the proper way. So I did bring up CPIC. I think I was wrong, and I think that if this does happen, I think the communication to the board, because it is a bit of a gray area, it does say they communicate with the board, could be sent to the chair and the director at the time. Just offering it up for people's discussion and consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Hearns-Renata. Next on the speakers list, we have Trustee O'Brien. Go ahead, Trustee O'Brien.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. This is a, I won't say touchy, but it's not a clear resolution. But I'd like to start off by just reading the regulation, just so we're keeping it in mind through the discussion. It's Regulation 612/2.21, duty of the board to respond. The board that established a school council shall consider each recommendation made to the board by the council and shall advise the council of the action taken in response to the recommendation. So I think I'm pretty much open to anything here, so long as we're legally covered. And it does say shall advise the council of the action taken in response to the communication. So whatever we do decide, I think we really have to keep that in mind. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Carabelli, you're next on the list.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this is reminding me of, we had a motion, I think, about that, about bringing a particular topic or a motion that passed at CPIC, and it was supposed to come to the board. Is that one of the reasons why we're also discussing this? And
Carabella, did you want Trustee Duzo to answer that?
Sure.
Feel comfortable, Duzo?
Sure. That wasn't the reason. However, it does meet part of the motion which was put forward. So this was this is being brought as a discussion item, and I brought it forward as a discussion item.
Okay, so then to follow up, I know to refresh my memory what happened with that previous motion. And then my other question would be, has this been discussed at CPIC? Do they know that we're discussing this, or they should be part of this conversation as well? I think they should be, but I don't know if they're aware that we're discussing this and if they were able to put some feedback for us.
Trustee Guzzo, do you want to go ahead and address that?
Yes, thank you through you, Madam Chair. I'm not discussing the Catholic parent involvement piece. This is about Catholic School Council, and CPIC isn't all about Catholic Parent Council. It's the Catholic Parent Involvement Committee. It only involves the chairs. So I'm talking specifically about the policy and what the steps are and what has come down. I know that there has been discussion at CPIC, and maybe Superintendent Denolfo can talk about it. I was present for some of those discussions in talking about what the role of school council is and supports for school council. I believe they've even created a handbook now. So my question is kind of, is leadership wise, how do we respond to these queries? How do we go through? And I think Trustee O'Hearn-Ternata made a comment as well, is how do these concerns come forward, and how do they get addressed from this perspective, from the trustees? So that's kind of why I'm opening up this discussion.
Trustee Guzzo, you also had your hand up prior to Trustee Carabella's question. Did you want to speak to it again?
Yes, please, if you don't mind, Madam Chair. I guess maybe we can hear from staff, is kind of, because I think that there's some wires being crossed. I don't know if there's an issue with, is the policy not clear enough? Is the procedure not clear enough? Maybe what are some of the supports with CPIC? I think it would actually be great to have CPIC come out to policy to have a conversation, whether it be the co-chairs, to kind of talk about what they've seen in school councils across our board, because there are a lot of inconsistencies. And I guess to Trustee O'Hearn-Ternata's point, and to kind of what I was asking is how do we support school councils when there's a breakdown in relationship at the school council level? Where do they go for support? Is it the superintendent of family schools? Is it the superintendent who oversees his portfolio? And if that's not resolved, what are the next steps? And
thank you, Trustee Guzzo. Sorry, I just saw someone's hand go up and down. Superintendent Denolfo, did you want to speak to this?
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. What I can provide is some feedback about some of the work that we've done together through CPIC to support the Catholic school councils. Okay, so CPIC has created a digital handbook that they are sharing this year with the Catholic school councils. And that was to come out as a result of just sort of the time since we have gone pre-COVID to now back to returning to school, with so many new parents becoming a part of our Catholic school councils. But they some of them didn't know how to start with their Catholic school council. So they've, over the last year, created this great electronic handbook that they're sharing with the chairs. They asked for them for feedback last year, and now it's ready to be rolled out. In addition, CPIC is a resource to Catholic school councils. Their role is to promote parent engagement in our school communities, but also to be a resource to Catholic school councils. So all the members of CPIC, and we aligned the membership to really mimic what the Board of Trustee representation is. So there's 3 in North Halton, 3 in Burlington, 3 in Oakville, who can then support the Catholic school councils of the area where they actually live and reside in. Okay, this is the work we're continuing to do at CPIC. Having said that, there have been issues that have come up even in the last 2 years. So a couple of the issues that have come up through the Catholic school councils, who then brought a concern to CPIC. Okay, they went to the chairs of CPIC, who then brought it to CPIC for a discussion item. From that, it went back to either with a response, because I was able to, as superintendent who oversees CPIC in Catholic schools, give a response if it was a situation that involved business services or facilities or another support to the schools from the board office, or it went back to the family school superintendent to work with the community that was sort of having a consideration of something that they wanted us to have input for. Some of the things included the lunchtime schedule when we were in, for high schools, the lunchtime schedule. Were they 2 lunches? Were they 3 lunches? Okay, and so we worked together, and the superintendent then worked together with that school. Another concern came up around when we had just gone into COVID and we weren't sure about graduations. Okay, that again was given back to the Catholic school councils to work in collaboration with the school administration on how that was going to look. Another thing that came up was the cafeteria concern when we didn't have a Chartwell running all our cafeterias last year. So these things have come to us. Now, we did have the concern that came up through CPIC just around the Catholic School Council has something that they want to be brought to the board table. And this was the motion that came up last year and which came back to policy, where it was left with the Board of Trustees. How do you want to respond to that? And I think that we sort of landed where it could come to the Board of Trustees as either they could come as a delegation to the Board of Trustees with a question, or they could present a report to us, and then you as a group were going to decide how you wanted that to be handled. I think the whole spirit of Catholic School Councils and CPIC has been collaborative. That's what our goal is all the time. Like, that's what's in our bylaws for CPIC. That's what we model to our Catholic School Council, is to be collaborative. We're to get to consensus where we can, but when we're at a crossroads, how do we move forward? And I know this is why the question is being asked, how do we move forward? And I would hope it's still in the spirit of collaboration. Okay, so how do we move forward? We have to move forward. How do we do that? And I think it's, sitting at a round table, hearing both sides and moving forward in the best interest for students and families in our system. Okay, so that's sort of the spirit that CPIC has presented. That's what we've sort of imparted onto the Catholic School Councils. And then in the event that we can't get there, it would go to the superintendent of the family schools or to the director to help find a resolution for it.
Thank you, Superintendent.
Clarity? Okay.
Do you have a follow-up, Trustee Guzzo, or any comments?
I do. I just have a follow-up. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Superintendent Donofrio. So I guess, so here's my question. And so I understand the chain of command. So I guess where I'm struggling is if we have CPIC and we have a superintendent who oversees this portfolio, can a family of schools superintendent then decide to do something different? I'm at a bit of a crossroad, because we know we've had these conversations at CPIC, and I haven't been involved in all of them, but I have been there for a few of them. And it seems like, you oversee this portfolio. This is all this wonderful work that's being done, and it's done in the spirit of collaboration. And, it's what makes us uniquely Catholic, is having these wonderful school councils. But then if there's a disconnect between that and a family school superintendent, like how does that work? Like, I'm trying to understand how that works together. Like, I'm assuming that what's discussed at CPIC and how you've put forward how things will run based on your portfolio, that would just be a follow through in the family schools. Like, to me, it doesn't make sense that there should be any change from your portfolio and what CPIC is recommending down to the school level.
Do you want, yep. Superintendent Donofrio, do you mind addressing that?
Sure, through you, Madam Chair. Trustee Guzzo, that should be it would come back. I can always support, and I will always support in providing guidance to the school. I can work directly with the school because I do oversee Catholic School Councils and Catholic Parent Development Committee, and I will work alongside with our fellow superintendents. The spirit of Catholic School Councils is to work collaboratively, and I think that's what we all want. So, Trustee Guzzo, whatever the concern is, I'm committed to continue to work together with that Catholic School Council and that school principal on how we can move forward. for what we have set up in Halton Catholic on how our Catholic school councils work in collaboration with the school community.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent D'Onofrio. Trustee O'Brien, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, through Madam Chair, and thank you, Trustee Guzzo, for bringing up the whole concept of troubleshooting at early stages through our superintendents. And Superintendent D'Onofrio, you've outlaid some good strategies that you're implementing so that nothing really has to go to the board. And I think it would be a rare situation where council would have to appeal to the board as a last resort, because as Trustee Guzzo said, once in a while that does happen. And I guess that is why the reg is in place for those rare occurrences where it does come to the board. It doesn't have to come with an action item. Just Superintendent D'Onofrio mentioned a delegation. I think that would satisfy the reg. And if it had to go to an action item after that, we have a policy in place. Again, my concern is that the regulation is satisfied. So I want to just put it out that I'd be very happy with it coming as a delegation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee Carabella.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I was going to ask a question about, let's say there is some sort of issue at a school and the council wants to further engage the school community. Can the chairs, what is the protocol for using to communicate with all the parents at the school? Do the chairs have access to the parent emails to solicit feedback or let them know what's going on? What is the usual way that the school council communicates with all their parent body?
Superintendent D'Onofrio or somebody else, you want to? Okay, go ahead. I see your hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, to Trustee Carabella. Trustee Carabella, right in our procedures, it says that the Catholic School Council shall consult with the parent guardian community, that issues before the council will determine when it is appropriate to do so. So I give the example of the school uniform review. So we know in our uniform policy, especially at elementary, it's reviewed every 3 years. Okay, so if the Catholic School Council has received sort of an indication from the school community, okay, they'll bring it up at the Catholic School Council meeting. Are we going to go with the uniform vote this year, or are we going to continue if we have the uniform in place? So in order to get the feedback of the community, then they will go out for stakeholder feedback to the Catholic school community about that. I think there's a couple situations where schools have actually done it for certain things that are important to the school community. Sometimes it's with regards to their fundraising goals. They'll go to the community at large and do a survey to say, give us your insight in terms of that. So it is appropriate that the Catholic School Council, they may do it through the school to be sending out the communication. They usually wouldn't send out to the whole school community. The school council wouldn't have access to that database, so it has to be done through the school principal directing that. But they will go to the community for different things that they want the community feedback about.
Thank you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, trustees. I think that's it. I don't see any more hands up. So thanks for the conversation. I will hand the gavel back over to Trustee Guzzo.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Now we're going to move on to item 7.2. So trustees, this was item 6.2, policy II-19, educational field trips. Trustee Agnew, I'm going to let you open up the discussion on your proposed changes.
Great, thank you very much, and through you, Madam Chair. For anyone that was present at our last board meeting, we had a bit of a conversation with respect to accessibility and inclusion with our field trips, as well as our broader board-wide opportunities. And I think we identified a few situations where we could certainly do better to ensure that no student is left behind on any of these opportunities. And so you know, a lot of this is going to fall, well, a lot of it's going to fall to the procedure or to the policy, but a lot's going to fall to the procedure as well. But I think it's imperative that we reframe our mind from one that is, we will look to accommodate, or we will look to consider, or we will, you know, take that under advisement, or do our best. We need to be more clear and more concrete than that. And our language has to be such that if the opportunity does not meet the needs of all students to fully participate, then I don't know that that's an opportunity that we should proceed with. So how, you know, so that's where the changes are coming here. You know, we know that in order for us to look for consistency and for us to look for adherence, that we should be making these changes to the policy. And again, how that's going to be done is going to be left up to the procedure piece. Maybe that's a toolkit that's developed. Maybe that's some other pieces that are put together with respect to how this will work. But I really, honestly, you know, not being confrontational, but I would challenge anyone to be okay with the idea that, you know, we can provide any type of field trip, educational or otherwise, or any board-wide initiative, whether that be Walk with Jesus, or I should say now it's Journey with Jesus, or our cross country, or track and field, any of those to be non-accessible in any capacity. We want to see fulsome participation from all of our students. And this isn't just about our students, this is about staff, this is about parents that want to attend. And so the more that we can, you know, we can ensure that these opportunities don't exclude anyone, I think the more that we can increase participation as well at some of these events. And so, you know, that's what's here for consideration, are those changes, and they shouldn't be limited just to the physical disability piece. There's other barriers. There's barriers to transportation. There might be some medical conditions. We may see students that have particular needs as they pertain to deaf and hard of hearing, or you know, other exceptionalities. And so that's what this is. That's the suggested changes that are here. That's the discussion that I wanted to have. And, you know, let's look to get some feedback from CPIC, from SEAC, and, you know, work that in to perhaps these suggested changes. But that's the conversation I wanted to have with trustees this evening. And I think it's a very reasonable request to look at these changes. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. And thanks again for allowing it to go to a discussion. Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. And thank you, Trustee Agnew. I mean, we need to thank this coming forward and, you know, information coming forward, because we can always do better. We're doing great, but we can always do better. And I just ask that, you know, it will go to CPIC and it will go to SEAC. And I don't know if even some, you know, parents can be involved that have, you know, lived experiences to give their take or their information and, you know, how they feel or how their child feels. Because, you know, quite honestly, we want our children to be happy. That's student achievement, right? To be included, that's part of student achievement. But I don't have the experience behind me to actually, you know, to make changes to a particular policy. So I just ask that every committee that can have eyes on this to really do it, you know, right the first time, that would be my request. So thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Hearn-Chernotta. Trustee Agnew.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair, just a comment too that I wanted to make is that by including everyone, it doesn't mean that others are going to miss out on that opportunity. So I want to be very clear about that, you know, the idea behind this again is to ensure that every student that's in a class that wishes to participate in something can participate in something, and that there's no factors that would be excluding that full participation. But this doesn't mean we're looking to cancel field trips, or we're looking to cancel track and field, or we're looking to cancel all of those fantastic opportunities that we have for our students. We actually want to make sure that what we're doing is providing the chance for everyone who wishes to participate to be able to do that. And again, we have to be very clear with our language that considerations and accommodations are not often enough. And we too often see where we choose a location or we choose an opportunity or an event, and we try to make the child fit into that instead of the other way around. And I think we need, like I said, to reframe that thinking, that we have to be very clear that there should be nothing should be planned or executed without ensuring that that opportunity is going to include every single person who wishes to participate. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Trustee Murphy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know if I'll be able to articulate this properly, but maybe you can help me along. So we're going from society where was what is good for the masses is good enough to an equity lens, which is what we should be doing. Lens is different actions for equal outcomes and equal results. And then one of the words that Trustee Agnew used a few times was participation and full participation. And I was at the venue for the cross country and trying to understand what that means or what does it look like. So I don't know. Again, I'm probably not articulating this properly, but I think it's important to have an understanding when we're talking about participation or full participation. What is that expectation from everybody involved in that? And I think to me there is a disconnect, which is an obvious disconnect because we're looking at it from different lenses and different eyes. So I think that needs to be in the discussion. So I don't know, Trustee Agnew, I don't know if I'm getting my point across, or maybe you can comment on that. What does participation mean, or how do we communicate or come to a common understanding of what participation means? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, Trustee Murphy. And is that okay, Madam Chair, if I address that? And I think that's going to look different for different activities. And so I'll give you a couple of examples. So, to the example that you brought forward about the cross-country meet, our staff did an excellent job providing an opportunity for our students with special education needs or with other needs to be able to participate. So were they participating in the same way as some of the other students there? No, but it was sort of a separate event, right? It was a Special Olympics event. So, so the full intention was to make sure that there was an event as part of this bigger event that would include opportunities for participation for those students who have different needs. So, I think that's one piece, but I'm going to give you another example that might be something else to consider. So let's think about an idea like going to a camp. So we know that a lot of our students like to have their grade 7, grade 8 trip, and it can oftentimes be at a camp location. And so, we look at, so let's say that, we deem that somewhere, and I'm picking this isn't specific, but we pick a Camp Muskoka, and we say, you know what, it's met all the criteria, it has everything that we need in it. Let's take that one step further. So we can get the student there, but can they actually participate in some fashion when they're there? And that's a conversation with the student, that's a conversation with the family. These are the activities that may be available for the student to participate in fully. And then I think it's a discussion. So, again, that participation is going to be different from different people. But I think what we need to take a look at is use sort of the example of when we're looking at sites, let's say, from an accessibility perspective, we wouldn't dare book a venue without toilets, right? If it's an all-day event. But we may go ahead and book a venue that doesn't have accessible toilets. So, that's the sort of the frame of mind. But to your point about the full participation, I think that's going to vary, Trustee Murphy. I really do, from activity to activity. And a lot of that is going to fall to the parents and the teachers and the team on what that accessibility or what that participation is going to look like for that student. I think if we can just do a great job in removing all of the barriers to participation, then we can figure the other pieces out as well as we go. And I don't know if that's helpful or more confusing.
No, I think that's a key point is having the dialogue before the event. What is the expectation on the level of participation? So what does that mean from the student's point of view? What does it mean from the parent's point of view? And having the discussion to try to accommodate that. You know, I think going forward without having those discussions is potentially where we can run into some really challenges. So I think that was a very important point is we need to build into the procedure, whatever we're doing, is that we should be having those conversations ahead of time before the event when we're at the planning stages is get an understanding of what does participation mean to a student who has those specific needs.
Thank you, Trustee Murphy. And I think that the way Trustee Agnew has written it allows for that, right? It's not a one brush for everything. It's here's the event, here are the students that are participating. Is it accessible for everybody that's participating in it? That's how I read her changes. Trustee Carabella, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I'm grateful this came forward, and I do concur that it should go to SEAC and CPIC and to solicit the feedback of parents and students who have participated in these field trips, their pros and cons of how the events went. So I'm very grateful that it's going to, I'm assuming it's going there because we've spoken about that. Would that be going to the next meeting of SEAC or CPIC, or is there, what would be the flow for that?
It's confirmed it's going to the next SEAC meeting, which I believe is coming up. I just got the notification for it. We can add it as a discussion item. Trustee Carabella, do you have a follow-up?
No, that's great. Thanks for the feedback.
Seeing that there's no other, oh, okay. Yeah, no, and I just wanted to make a comment as well. No, and I think, you know, we need to, I think when we're looking at things, we need to remember it's not the majority that we need to look out for. It's the minority that we're supposed to take a look out and make sure that we are including in. And just because we are meeting the needs of 80 or 90% of our students doesn't mean that we are being inclusive. Being inclusive means we're making sure that we take care of that 10 or 15%. That's what human rights is. That's what equity is. That's what's making sure that we're ensuring that our students all get the same experience. Sorry, Trustee Agnew, you have the floor.
Thank you. And I just wanted to really hammer home something that, that Trustee Murphy has said is it's really that conversation and those considerations made prior to booking. And again, this is not an ill intent. You know, our school teams do a fantastic job. Our teachers do a great job coming up with ideas for educational field trips and end of year trips and all those sorts of things. And that's fantastic, that enthusiasm. But you know, we can't assume that it's going to work. We can't assume that we can make that work. And again, to the best of their intentions, you know, I've had in the past where someone has booked a ski trip, you know, and thinking that's awesome and had looked into all the factors of it and it has an accessible this and it has an accessible that, but there's so much more to it than that. And so, you know, let's have I think if we can procedurally put in there that there's these conversations that happen before a venue is chosen, I just think that it'll be much more transparent and we're less likely to get signals crossed, and we're more likely to provide a fantastic, rewarding opportunity for everybody involved.
Thank you, Trustee Agnew. Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you to you, Madam Chair. And I wanted to just echo Madam Chair what you said about it fits all the human rights needs. I also believe it fits what we in our vision say as being distinctly Catholic. It's what Jesus would want. It's a great. These suggestions are fantastic. And I also commend Trustee Agnew for bringing this forward because I think it will also force some of our private sector facilities to start making more accommodations. I mean, not accommodations, but changes that will be in this direction. Because I'm finding out more and more that the private sector is not quite as accessible as I had assumed. So I think if we have a policy like this and schools want to use these private sector facilities, camps, I think it will force them to be more accessible. Thank you.
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Trustee O'Hearn-Chanota, you have the floor.
Thank you, and through you, Madam Chair. I'm trying to get the process flow in my head now. So we've had this policy now as a discussion item. So what will actually happen with this policy and procedure? Where will it go and then come back to this another policy meeting? I heard that it will go as a discussion item to SEAC. How will it get to CPIC? Will it go to our regular policy and procedure committee? I'm just trying to look at the movement of this policy and procedure. If someone can answer that for me.
Yeah, I can answer that, Trustee O'Hearn-Chanota. So SEAC and CPIC will meet before the next policy meeting. So we can ask that it be, you know, we've got the chair of SEAC here who has said she's going to add it as a discussion item. And we can ask CPIC as well to add as a discussion item, but it will come back if Trustee Agnew chooses. It can come back as an action item now on the next policy meeting with these proposed changes for trustees to vote on.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. But will it go to our regular policy committee for revision as well? That has curriculum, you know, with HCAA is under the curriculum umbrella, that kind of thing?
Are you referencing with the staff, like the staff to have a look at it?
Yes.
It can, absolutely. They will meet now. Their process is to start with the next cycle of policies tomorrow for the next next policy meeting. So if it's on the roster and it's on the agenda to come back, you know, they could absolutely look at it. And they also always have the ability to offer feedback into any policy when we bring them forward.
Perfect. I'm just trying to make sure that we have all the eyes we can possibly have on it to make it fantastic, more fantastic than it can be, you know?
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thanks.
Bella?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as it goes to SEAC and CPIC for discussion, will there be a chance from there to get to reach out to parents, specific parents in the community that experience what this policy is about, just to get parental feedback? Is that part of the? Is that going to be part of the process of a discussion within CPIC and SEAC, or does that'll get determined there, I guess?
It can get determined there, but that being said, just like any other policies that have been brought forward or motions at the board, trustees can bring them forward to make changes. Yes. It's actually not changing the policy to do something completely different. It's making it accessible. It's not required to go out for like a stakeholder feedback, if that's what you're referencing.
Oh, yeah.
So it would just go to, you know, it's going to SEAC and CPIC, and we will take any feedback or input that they have from there.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I just have a follow-up comment.
Go ahead.
Yes, so yes, I didn't mean like full-on stakeholder feedback, just some feedback from parents would be good. I guess that's through SEAC as well, through all the people who participate there. And maybe Superintendent Ballo will also be able to tell us about the feedback from how principals and the school administration, also how they deal with this policy and what we're bringing forward. So I'm just trying to get feedback from all the sectors involved. But I guess that will happen at SEAC. We'll have that discussion there, and at CPIC. Thank you.
Yes. And you know, and just an observation again, we're not changing anything for students who can participate in any type of function anywhere where there isn't necessarily accessibility. We are talking about students that have issues, not issues, that need accessible washrooms, accessible locations. That's who we're looking at. We're not looking at the 80% who can attend wherever the function is being held. We are looking specifically to open it up to ensure that those students that aren't necessarily able to attend all locations, for example, the Special Olympics event that was held that there was a large discussion about, that they couldn't attend because of accessibility issues for students that were involved in that. I saw another hand and I saw it come down. Trustee O'Brien, did you have?
Thank you, Madam Chair. My question was answered, so I withdraw my hand.
Amazing. Okay, thank you. Thank you, trustees, for that. We are moving now on to item 8, information items. So as you can see, these are the administrative procedures that coincide with the policies that have been presented this evening. Trustees, do we have any questions regarding any of these procedures? Trustee O'Brien, you have the floor.
Thank you, through Madam Chair. It is a question about procedure VI-5, education research under purpose. It is understood that education research proposals need to be compatible with the Christ-centered learning environment provided to all students within the HCDSB is struck out. Has it been put in somewhere else?
Thank you, Trustee O'Brien. Yes, it actually has. It has been moved to requirements.
Thank you.
Trustees, do we have any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to item 8.5. As you can see, those are our upcoming agenda items for the next policy meeting on November 8th, 2022. Item number 9, miscellaneous information. There is no miscellaneous information. Item number 10, correspondence. We received no correspondence for this meeting. Item 11, in camera. There's no need to go in camera. Item number 12, motion to excuse absent committee members. Trustee DeRosa is absent this evening. Can I get a motion to excuse Trustee DeRosa?
I'll move it.
Trustee O'Hearn-Chernota, seconded by
O'Brien.
Anybody opposed? Okay, moving on to the adjournment. Can I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by Trustee Agnew, seconded by
Trustee O'Brien.
Trustee O'Brien. Thank you. Anybody opposed? Seeing none, I will be leading us in our closing prayer. Please join us in the sign of our faith. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. I would ask that everybody keep in their prayers Masha Amini, her death, that we move towards ending violence against women in Iran. And remember her, the 22-year-old who has died because she is affected by women's rights that have been taken away. And also I'd like you to keep in your mind the 33 million people affected by the floods in Pakistan, that these people are in our prayers. Lord of wisdom, awaken us to our duty to care for the basic needs of all people. Strengthen with hope people denied their human rights and freedoms, and provide us all with a voice to cry out for justice for the poor and the oppressed. Amen. Thank you, everyone. This concludes our policy meeting, and have a great night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, everyone.